It all started when I noticed a drop of blood on the marble countertop. Not mine, someone else's. A scarlet, almost black bead in the cold morning light, frozen at the foot of a neon statue we had admiringly called art just last night. It felt like 100 years ago, but let me start from the beginning. My name is Tucker, and this was supposed to be the best weekend of our lives. The beginning, 6 hours earlier. The penthouse was obscenely luxurious. Floor-to-ceiling panoramic windows showcasing the dancing lights of the night metropolis, an insanely expensive projector, a chrome bar with backlighting, and a jacuzzi on the open terrace. The 5 of us, me, Jessica, her boyfriend Mark, plus Alexa and Johnny, piled inside with ecstatic shouts. We had chipped in for this fancy loft for 24 hours through some exclusive app. An experience for the select few, the description said. Turned out to be damn true. Alexa was the first to notice something strange. As the biggest selfie enthusiast, she immediately started looking for the best angles. "Look, what a cool motion sensor," she said, poking her finger at a barely noticeable shiny hemisphere in the ceiling above the sofa. I didn't think much of it at the time. Thought it was part of the smart home system. Climate control or something. The party picked up speed. Music, alcohol, laughter. We fooled around, danced on a huge rug that was softer than all my dreams combined. Mark, having had a bit too much, started doing silly magic tricks, and Jessica filmed him on her phone, laughing hysterically. And then it happened. On the wall where the huge projector was mounted, the screensaver with floating fish suddenly vanished and a bright blue screen started blinking. A second later it showed us in real time. A camera from a high angle like in a surveillance feed. We froze, glasses in hand, staring dumbly at the screen. Cool. Johnny was the first to snap out of it. A video wall. Is that a feature of such an expensive setup? But the delight didn't last long. A voice came from the built-in speakers. Calm, polite, almost metallic, devoid of emotion. "Good evening, guests. I'm glad you like my house." We exchanged glances. The owner? A security guard? But the voice was somehow lifeless, a synthesizer. "You haven't just rented a penthouse. You have become participants in my modest show. Allow me to introduce the channel Uncensored, live broadcast." An icy wave ran down my spine. Jessica instinctively clung to Mark. "What kind of stupid joke is this?" Mark tried to take charge, but his voice trembled. The screen split into 6 sections. We saw ourselves from different angles. The kitchen, the living room, the hallway, even the inside of the jacuzzi. Our every move, every emotion was on display for all to see. My hand instinctively reached for my pocket, as if I could hide from the all-seeing lenses. Do not attempt to disable the system. The doors and windows are locked. The rules are simple. Entertain the viewers. The ratings are climbing. Your sincerity is your currency. What viewers? What is he talking about? Alexa whispered, and her whisper was horribly clearly duplicated by the speakers. The microphones were everywhere. The voice continued, and its next phrase stunned us. "Tucker, your secret about cheating on the final exams has garnered a lively response. The viewers are voting. Should we reveal the truth to Jessica now?" I couldn't breathe. No one could have known that. I had only told my diary, which was in my room at the dorm. Jessica looked at me with bewilderment that quickly turned to suspicion. "Tucker?" "Mark." The voice switched to him. "Your secret account where you're saving money for a divorce." Jessica doesn't know, does she? The viewers are delighted by the irony. Mark turned pale as a ghost. Jessica recoiled from him as if he were a leper. "What? What divorce?" "Alexa, your nightly walks to the married professor. Johnny, your debts to some very unpleasant people." The room turned into hell. Not a physical one, but a psychological one. We stood there, crushed, laid bare before each other under the merciless eyes of the cameras. We weren't friends anymore, but a group of strangers connected by a web of lies that someone had masterfully unraveled. And now, the voice became sweetly poisonous. "Let's raise the stakes. In the bedroom, in the nightstand, you will find a knife, a beautiful Japanese one. The viewers are bored. They need more intense content. The first one to reach it gets a privilege. For example, the right to contact the outside world. It was a trap. Primitive, dirty, but it worked instantly. What flashed in our eyes wasn't hope, but cold horror and animalistic calculation. Johnny, whose debts were the most pressing issue, was the first to bolt towards the hallway. Mark rushed after him, pushing Jessica aside, and it began. On the screen, we watched them run down the hallway, the cameras tracking their every step, every snarl. Alexa, with a wild shriek, grabbed Jessica's hair, screaming something about her having ruined everything. And me? I stood with my back pressed against the cold glass of the panoramic window, watching this slaughter. At the drops of wine spilled on the snow-white carpet that now looked like blood, at the screen where my friends were turning into beasts. And then I saw it. That very drop, on the marble countertop of the bar. Not wine, darker, thicker. I moved closer. It was blood, and it was fresh. The voice from the speakers laughed quietly. Excellent. And now, Tucker, look at the camera in the corner. Smile. You are the new favorite of the show. Say something to our viewers. They adore those who hesitate. They associate it with intrigue. I looked up. A tiny lens, a black dot in the smoke detector, was staring right at me. It saw everything. And somewhere out there, on the other side of the screen, thousands, millions of invisible eyes were craving more. And from the hallway, screams, the sound of a struggle, and the clatter of broken glass were already audible. The show went on, and our night was just beginning. The voice from the speakers fell silent, leaving in the air only Johnny's heavy breathing and Alexa's muffled sobs. This silence was worse than any words. It lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to contain the realization of the full depth of our fall. We were no longer friends. We were a pack of cornered animals, ready to tear each other apart for a ghost of a chance at salvation. And then, in this ringing silence, a new sound emerged. Not from the speakers. It was muffled, metallic, and came from the front door. Scratching, drilling. We froze, staring at the heavy steel door. Even Johnny and Mark, ready to tear each other apart over the knife, stopped. Is that help? Jessica whispered, and a hope as fragile as glass sounded in her voice. The voice in the speakers came to life again, and for the first time there was some emotion in it. A light. Sadistic curiosity. Oh, unexpected guests. It seems your audience has stepped beyond the virtual. An interesting plot twist. My heart sank. This wasn't help. This was part of the show. With a loud click, the massive locks on the door disengaged by themselves. The door slowly, with a creak, slid aside. In the doorway, shrouded in the darkness of the corridor, stood three figures in dark uniforms and masks on their faces. Stylized as smileys, but distorted into sinister grimaces. In their hands were not guns, but something resembling pneumatic rifles and long police-like batons. They entered without a single word. Quickly, in sync, like a well-oiled machine. "Hey, what's the meaning of this?" Mark shouted, taking a step forward with a stupid bravado of despair. One of the smileys raised his rifle. A quiet pop sounded more like a puff. Mark gasped and grabbed his shoulder. A scarlet paint mixed with some gel seeped from under his fingers. It wasn't bullets, but paintballs. But the pain was very real. He collapsed to his knees, screaming from shock and pain. Excellent. The tension is rising. The reaction to a physical threat is always the highest-rated moment. The voice commented on the events like a sports match. Johnny, seeing this, rushed not towards the attackers but back, deeper into the living room, towards the bar. His eyes darted around, looking for cover. Alexa screeched and dove under the table. "And me!" I saw one of the smileys turn his mask towards me. His baton was equipped with some kind of electrodes. Sparks. They didn't want to kill us, but to add spectacle. To cause pain. To humiliate. "Run!" I shouted to Jessica, pushing her towards the kitchen, away from the main stage of this massacre. But there was nowhere to run. The cameras saw everything. They were everywhere. And these three, They weren't just attackers. They were the directors of this nightmare, its physical embodiment. They began methodically searching the room, pulling my friends out of their hiding places, not with rage but with cold, efficient cruelty. A baton whistled through the air onto Johnny's back as he tried to resist. He froze with a hoarse groan. Mark, bleeding fake blood, lay on the floor and moaned. His wound wasn't fatal, but the sight of it paralyzed our will. A Smiley walked over to him and stepped on the wounded shoulder. Mark's scream was echoed by a satisfied laugh from the speakers, and then my gaze fell on that very drop of blood on the countertop. Someone else's, old, and next to it another one, fresh, from Mark. We thought we were being filmed. It turned out we were being picturesquely tortured. One of the attackers approached me. His smiley mask with bulging eyes and an idiotic grin seemed the embodiment of hell itself. He brought his baton close to me and blue sparks crackled between the electrodes. "Tucker," the voice hissed from the speakers, "the viewers are waiting for your move. Fight or run. Make the show interesting." I looked at the sparking baton, at the moaning Mark, at Jessica's face distorted with horror, who was already being led away by another Smiley, and I realized that the knife in the bedroom wasn't the worst trap. The worst trap was the hope that we could play by their rules and win. The show was indeed continuing, but now it had new actors, and the script had become even more cruel. The sparking baton was a centimeter from my face. The smell of ozone tickled my nostrils. My gaze was fixed on the empty eyes of the Smiley mask. Somewhere behind me, Alexa was sobbing, and Johnny was wheezing, trying to break free. "Tucker, time is running out." The voice from the speakers sounded like a capricious director. "The viewers are losing interest. Give them a spectacle." A spectacle. They wanted us to fight, to die for their entertainment. And at that moment, something broke inside me. Not fear, no. A furious, cold hatred. Hatred for these walls, for these cameras, for this voice. I saw no other way out. I lunged not away from the baton, but towards it. Sharply to the side, and the sparks burned through my jacket sleeve, searing the skin. The pain was sharp and clean. I slammed into the Smiley with my shoulder, knocking him to the floor. The baton clattered away under the sofa. It wasn't a fight. It was a desperate pantomime of survival. For a few seconds, chaos reigned in the room. Mark, forgetting the pain in his shoulder, grabbed the leg of the second guard. Johnny, seizing the moment, broke free and rushed to the door, which was still open. But the door was a trap. It slammed shut with a bang right in front of his face. Johnny recoiled, and at that moment, the third Smiley, the one holding Alexa with a sharp, practiced movement, threw her to the floor and raised his pneumatic rifle. The same quiet pop sounded, but this time, everything was different. Johnny froze. He didn't gasp, didn't clutch at a wound. He just stood there, looking surprised at the scarlet flower spreading on his chest, right over his heart. It wasn't paint. The color was too dark, and the stain was growing at an alarming rate, soaking his light t-shirt. He slowly, like a felled tree, sank to his knees, then onto his side. His eyes, wide open, looked at us but saw nothing. A scream got stuck in my throat. The silence became absolute. Even the voice in the speakers fell silent, as if caught off guard. Alexa's sobs turned into a suppressed, terrible moan. Mark released the guard's leg, and he didn't even bother to finish him off, just stepped aside. Johnny lay motionless. The game was over, at least for him. An unforeseen turn of events. The voice finally sounded, but now it lacked its previous confidence. There was a kind of technical puzzlement, as if the script had malfunctioned. Protocol violated. Actor has left the role. Actor, Jessica whispered, looking at our friend's body. Her face was wet with tears. Suddenly the lights went out. The projector screen went dark. The masked figures froze in indecision, and then, as silently as they had appeared, quickly retreated into the darkness of the corridor. The door opened and closed again. We were left in the semi-darkness, illuminated only by the city lights outside the window, with the body of our friend in the middle of the luxurious living room. The silence was torn by an insistent, sharp siren sound, this time a real police siren, Blue lights flashed somewhere below. Someone had raised the alarm. Maybe neighbors? Maybe those very viewers for whom it had gone too far. The doors unlocked with a loud click. We didn't rush to run. We stood as if rooted to the spot, looking at Johnny. The luxurious penthouse had turned into a crypt. That very drop of blood on the countertop I had noticed in the morning now made sense. We weren't the first, and I knew not the last. Police officers burst inside, shouting, "Hands up!" Their flashlights picked out our pale, frightened faces from the darkness, the trashed furniture, the stain on the carpet, and him. The story was over. But the nightmare was not. It would be with us forever, in every dark corner, in every shiny dot on the ceiling, in the memory of the friend who died, not in an accident or from illness, but became entertainment for an invisible crowd. We survived. But the cameras, I'm sure, kept working until the very end. And somewhere out there, in the depths of the network, a live broadcast called Life After the Show is still going on. And the viewers are waiting for a new season.